And we're going to be doing a reboot. So if you're on this means you're one of the kind of people who've been with us for a long time. So both Katie and I are kind of doubling down second half of this year. We've got a new schedule bi-weekly as well too. So, more of this to come. Again, I think the goal, why we started doing this, 10 months ago was we just realized the power of this, and Katie's been harnessing it in-house at different companies now. And I'm excited. There's a lot that's changing and evolving. And so, I'm looking forward to this, continued chapters and sharing. And I think this topic's probably the most important topic for most sellers, right?
Yeah.
As long as they do something with it.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm excited too, because funny enough, it in a weird way, it kept me accountable to staying on top of it.
Totally.
And as soon as this like stopped for like 3 weeks, I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. Like I feel like I'm like 5 months behind because I haven't like stayed on it as much over the last few weeks. And so it's exciting to start, to step back into it and really, the changes again, they just happen so fast. That's why we still do this. We're like, there are things that we covered in some of our early sessions that literally no longer apply. We're talking,
oh my God, like plugins and
yeah.
Yeah, it was like I did that LinkedIn course in like September, and then October, like 4 weeks later, before the class even came out, it's like, oh no, it'll just natively search the internet now.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
So what's up, man? So you're Costa Rica. How long are you gonna be there?
Here for a month. So here till the 13th or 14th. So it feels good to be back. Just got in yesterday, cranking away. It's like felt bad to come back to like my other home office, and
There
like
you go.
roll barefoot and do all the things. So no, it's good. Good to be back. Pura vida, baby. Pura vida.
I was gonna say, starting to live some of that pura vida. I love it, man. Yeah, it's kind of like we'll coordinate better next year to where we'll have more overlap. But for me, it's kind of I spent the first 6 weeks of the summer, Costa Rica, Brazil last week, which was awesome. You'll be there next year, for sure. It was awesome. Sao Paulo is just an amazing city, like fun city. Definitely, I don't know if I'd spend a full week there again. But bigger than New York, which I didn't know any of this before I went. Massive, huge, but doesn't have like big skyscrapers. It was fun though. We'll catch up on some of those vibes later. So all right, well, let's talk about getting ahead of prospects with AI. So I think there's some pretty cool things to kind of catch people up with in the news. There's a lot of things that, again, OpenAI is kind of consistently. OpenAI, the reason that we talk so much about ChatGPT and OpenAI is really they're the organization that, it's not that Gemini or Claude aren't innovating. They certainly are, and Perplexity and some of these other ones too for certain use cases. But I think consistently in terms of pushing the envelope around custom GPTs, which is 6 months plus ago now, and other items, I think kind of following them is a pretty easy one. I'll tell this, and I'll drop this in the chat for everybody too. I thought this was pretty interesting, KD, is they OpenAI defined, and I'm going to drop this for my folks on LinkedIn. Boom, my folks on the Zoom. They defined levels of AI, right? And I thought that this was pretty badass because, and if you're in the chat right now, as always, let KD and I know where you're joining us from. Derek wants to know what topics will be covered on this call. Well, Derek, other than where Katie and I are in the world, what we usually do is we'll talk about trends, new things to think about with OpenAI, and then we're going to get very tactical for a majority, and we'll talk about how to get ahead of your prospects. So how to use Gen AI, some very specific examples to generate more meetings, get more people involved, talk a little bit about prompting, some other things as well too. So that is what you're going to learn, Derek. If you want to make sure if this is a good use of your time. So the other thing that I would call out here for everyone. Oh, I didn't send that to everybody. Don't you hate that? It's like, oh yeah, I only sent that to KD, who doesn't need to see it. So KD, what do you think about this? So OpenAI said there's different levels of artificial intelligence: chatbots, reasoners, agents, innovators, organizations. What are your thoughts on this? And basically saying, hey, just so you guys know, we're barely at step 1, maybe on the cusp of level 2.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting the way they bucketed these, because that is how, in our conversations with people, how they seem to think about what AI is capable of. But what I wanted people to kind of grab from this is like, if they're talking about this now, it means they already have some versions of this that are working. So for them to even come out and talk about,
Yeah.
okay, chatbots, okay, then reasoners, human level problem solving, it means they already have that. Agents, system that can take actions in it. They're not predicting the future. They're not suggesting what it will be. They're talking about what they already see as the levels. And so I think people should be looking at this a little bit more like, oh, snap, like that's what's coming soon. I think that's still the place so many people are missing is like, AI can't do that yet. I'm like, you're not hearing me here. This isn't about a yet thing. If it
Yeah.
can do it in 3 years, do you understand how huge that is? So that's what I thought was very interesting. And it's that systems one, that agents one is the one I'm so curious around. Is like, can it take specific system-based actions on behalf of a team, on behalf of humans? That's the one that I'm like, oh boy. And then invention. Once it starts inventing things, shoot, I'll see you on the ranch, Jake. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing there.
I mean, we got to get out.
Uh,
No, that yeah, and again, I think that that's such a good call out. Look, for anybody who's maybe you're just still new to this, whether you're joining us on LinkedIn or maybe this, you're like, yeah, I need to maybe start paying attention. Or, KD, you'll appreciate this. When I was giving my talk last week, I said, okay, I gave kind of a timeline of ChatGPT, and I said, how many of you use ChatGPT regularly? Right, in their day to day. And I was shocked, probably 70%, 60, 70%, like, use it every week or month. They use it. I said, all right, keep your hands up. How many of you tried it initially, but then gave up? And almost everyone kept their hand up. And then I said, all right, now how many of you just gave up in general? And then the other 30%, put their hand up. And I think that this is what Katie is getting at, is what's so critical. This stuff is evolving so quickly. So if in your mind you've already written it off, you said generative AI does not work, it's not that good, it is okay at this, it'll not, you're just wrong, because this technology is evolving so quickly. It's like, you have to realize you need to be coming back to it and staying on top of it, even if you don't love the answers today,
mhm.
even if you don't think it's like absolutely perfect, today. And they also, other quick kind of in the news, they talked about this new AI technology codenamed Strawberry. I don't know what that means. To enhance reasoning, right? And so this talks about this ability of like human reasoning. So imagine what it's done now is like it's got like our language down. So it's like, oh, this is how people kind of talk and conversate, and this probably means this, and that probably means that. But then again, it's this concept. What's up next is really, reasoning. And I think, like what you said, KD, the big kind of developments in the news is just you have to be able to stay on top of this. And if it continues to get better and better at reasoning, which you have to assume it will, and it will get better faster, you can't afford to be left behind. And
Mhm.
that's my hot take on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw this out here real quick as we move on to it. This is why, especially leaders, if you're listening right now, but reps, this is important for you too, is like, can you document your own reasoning? Like, do you know why you do what you do? Like leaders,
Such
same
a good
idea.
one.
Like, you need to have the systems, but can you explain why the system is what it is? Because if you can do that, you can train these things faster on your system. So like I'll use like my call scorecards example. Most people have very boilerplate. The scorecards are there. Mine are incredibly detailed on not only what we're scoring on, but what good looks like, what we're looking for in examples. And because I have the reasoning behind the scorecard already, I can now build AI to score off of my reasoning. Why am I looking for these things? So, sales leaders, you need to start not just documenting the what, but the how and the why. Why do we target these segments? Why do we go after these personas? Why are these pain? If you can start to gather your own reasoning, you're going to be able to leverage AI faster than those people that don't.
Yeah, and the Katie, take that a step further, because we're going to talk now. We're going to dive into these examples, right? And I think this dovetails really nicely, which is how AI has transformed the way that sales team kind of understand and engage with prospects is kind of the goal for today. But for those who again are like, well, why do I need to understand the why, or what, maybe talk a little bit about some of the applications of that. So for a lot of people, again, who still are at step one, I think, maybe we're at step two of 10, of 30, of where we're going to be. What are some of like the tactical applications for what you said, which is that documenting of the why, to where you see, like, if you're a sales leader or, a rep who wants to do it for themselves, and like the impact that it can have, more tactically.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think easy examples, right, are, called prospect and company research. So there's what you're looking for, but then there's why you're looking for it. And so if you can, like, so for example, like, all right, people like look at their 10Ks and like, all right, here's what we're looking for in the 10K. Cool. But if you can also document why specifically you're looking for that, the AI can do a better job of finding other things and other ways to gather that same information. Why are you looking at their hiring headcount for the next year? Well, why? Because that will imply X, Y, and Z. And if we know X, Y, and Z, then we can A, B, and C. Now your persona cards get so much better. Now your
Yep.
messaging gets so much better. So like that's one, I think, big use case around like prospect research. Okay. Figuring out, because even like the title of this webinar, like how'd you get into their heads? Like what are they looking for? We want to understand what personas care about. But I would say prospect research is a huge one for sure. Obviously
Yep.
using it in messaging in a big way, but also I'm really starting to dabble on the leadership side. Like, so like Jake, for example, when you inspect a deal, there are certain things you're looking for when you
Yes.
inspect that deal. Well, that's the how. If you start to also map out, here's why I look for this. Well, now we can start to coach on why we're looking for this. So those are a couple of my favorite use cases.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And I think, again, it goes back to that, this concept of what can you do with it. So Greg Walters called this out. I thought this was really great. He says, helps improve the prompt, right? So by doing this, or even better, the custom instructions. So if I can get out of my head, how I do deal inspection, for example, it allows me to then, one, kind of recreate my reasoning, which I know is better than some general off the street reasoning. And I think that's the big picture, maybe, oh shit / scary moment, maybe, for sales leaders, right? Is like, if you are only able to articulate in the moment why you're competent or how you arrived at a conclusion or those things, it becomes very difficult for you to better leverage AI, or even get your teams to leverage it, because you're not able to articulate for it to know, like, oh, it's this, not that, or
Mm.
this is how we should do it, etc. So I think for a lot of folks out there, it's, to me, and again, we'll get into this, kind of getting into prospects' heads now, that as leaders, you have to start to understand why you are where you're at. And by the way, you could also get ChatGPT to prompt it out of you. I use it for brainstorming and things all the time, and I actually used it for this exact use case on Monday night, of like, hey, why am I good at deal inspection? Ask me 10 questions in subsequent order to help me to understand what goes into great deal inspection. Like, again, and those are use cases I think, KD, or like most people can't even fathom those use cases.
So
And it
I'll
can, like,
throw this out here
suck it
because
out for you.
there's been this cliche quote of like, AI won't replace people. People using AI will replace people. And it's like it gets all the people fired up. And it's true-ish. The first people that will replace people, okay, people using AI, you know who those people are? People that have systems.
Yeah,
Because Jake has a system, right? Because y'all, what happens if Jake and I take our deal management, coaching, and inspection process, and because it's so detailed, what if we could inspect the deals of 100 companies at a time proactively? Like now, okay, well, then what's the manager doing, right? And be able to coach against it. Like people with leaders with systems are going to be the first ones that really do great out of this. If you are still treating your org and your role as pure art and no science, you're going to get replaced by someone who knows the science behind it because they can build a system around it.
that's right. That's right. All right. So we've got a couple questions here, but I want to make sure we got time to kind of get into the meat of the topic. So we've got 4 ways to get inside a prospect's head. And this goes back, this is a great one, right? So, this is, KD has the way he analyzes ideas. We kind of triangulate to the same area, but, how we get there. What I always used to say, my very first question when a rep came to me with a deal, I said, how does the company make money? And so I just dropped the link in the chat for everyone, um, both LinkedIn and on Zoom as well. If you can't understand business and someone's business, it becomes very difficult to really, and again, like maybe you're like, Jake, I don't know a lot about these industries or that the business. Great, you don't have to. And this is a really, really basic prompt, right? Go to this website, conduct an initial review, analyze their business model, core services, products, target audience. I'm aiming to understand the basic structures and objectives of their business, right? What it can help me to do is really quickly do that. What I used to do, KD, is I would, when I was, when even today, when I'm doing, kind of account growth or working with, somebody on my team, it's like, okay, we go to their website, look at their about, we do this, that. Now it's like, nope, I just go to ChatGPT. And you can, I mean, and you've got kind of the iterative prompting in this example that you all can access, which is like, okay, go deeper, look at their testimonials, their case studies. What do people like? What don't they like? And you can just continue to go in, and within about like 2 minutes, I can really understand how they make money, how they competitively differentiate, and just like imagine the quality of the conversation or like the email that this then allows me to write. And Katie, I'd be curious. I mean, that's my first question. Like, how do you, again, when you think about that idea of like getting to know their business, how does that resonate with kind of what you do, or how
Right.
you work with your reps?
It's close, right? So like what I focus on first is what problems do they have? That's always where I start, right? It's like how they make money. I want to know what problems are preventing them from making money. So I don't know if it's one layer above or one layer below, but like that's where I always start is what problems do they agree they have? And so if you look at this prompting here, right, it's like going down this path of understanding the business, there's getting more and more narrow with the questions that we're asking it. But because if you think about it, y'all, what do we think? How many thoughts we have per day? Someone can Google this. But like, how many thoughts we have
Oh
per
God.
day? And then what's crazy is what percentage of those thoughts are negative versus positive? The vast majority of our thoughts fall more into the negative or scanning, call it like anticipation bucket. Is we're funny enough, we're anticipatory beings. It's one of the things that separates us very well, is we can anticipate things that could occur, and that changes our behavior. But a lot of it is on the problems, the stressors, the negatives. That's why I want to be in the head of the prospect of like, what are those problems, those triggers, the negatives that they deal with day to day in their industry? So if I look at this one here, I would add an additional prompt in there of like, what are the common struggles? What are the known issues in the industry? What are some of the common things everyone complains about, but no one does anything about? I want to learn those, because now when I'm talking to them, there's a whole nother level of resonance in my messaging because I understand the problem. So that's where I go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and especially like if you've had a conversation with them or you've dove in, again, it goes to, because if I know what their problem is, I know kind of what the scene, because and why I think it's more important now than ever is, look, CFOs are involved in every deal, right?
Mhm.
CFOs are involved, or VPs of finance, depending on how big your ticket item is. You need to be able to articulate these things in their business metrics. Hey, you're in a very competitive world. We know that, and here's how we're going to help you with that, right? Hey, here's the things that you care about. We know your general world, and that goes to the second one that I dropped, which is what does the persona care about? And I think
There we
this
go.
is where most people mess up, is they don't realize that in today's world, you don't the idea of customization. And Katie, you're the first person, and I've stolen this like 500 times since. Customization versus relevancy. Okay. Relevancy is what books meetings. I was talking to a sales engagement company CEO last week. Jake, our data shows that the people that use relevancy, the business, the industry that they're in, and then the trends with that persona and what that person's facing. And I
Mhm.
feel like that is the real, this person. We just dropped a persona one in here too that you all can go check out. But Katie, how would you rank that? How would you rank, in terms of what it would take to book a meeting with you, or obviously you work with your teams on this, persona, industry trends, product knowledge. Where would you put persona?
I mean, I would put persona. Oh, if I only could have one, I'd actually put
You
it
can
up.
only have one. Yes, I know that this is not,
And I have to put it above industry. I'd have to put that number one.
I'd have to put it number one too. I'm with you.
The problems of a director of sales are different than the problems of a VP of sales, which are different than the
Yeah.
problems of
Yeah.
CRO, which are different than the problems of a CEO. The language that they use is different. How they measure it is different. The day-to-day is different. So it's the persona. Because I might know the industry, but then if I'm reaching out to a VP of sales, but using director level language, it's not relevant. If I reach out to a CRO using VP, it's not relevant. So I gotta put persona number one. And so often, man, this is like missing in everyone's playbook.
That's it, right? It's
They
crazy.
like it's not even there, let alone like y'all, like funny enough, this is still manual in my teams. I probably could put it in Chat GPT, but I just love the manualness nature of it. I still have all of my reps do Jill Conrad's buyer's matrix. Remember the buyer's matrix from Conrad and
Yeah.
her
Jill,
is
man, what
like
she's doing.
18. Shout out Jill, OG. Okay. Like, I mean, but it's manual, right? What is their title? Who do they engage with? How are they measured? What are the daily like struggles? How does success look like? What are they afraid? And I make my reps write this out for their personas because I'm trying to get that anchoring. But most people just don't. They don't nail the persona. They really don't. I get messaging all the time, all the time. Even like simple one. I got a message recently from like a power dialing company, and it's like, oh, like we get 10x your reps dials. As a
Yep.
CRO, do you think that's what's top of mind for me right now?
Oh, dude.
Is
What does
10x
that equal?
dial?
10x dials equals blah. What is the
Well,
outcome, not
for
the
a
product?
CRO, right? Then because now KD, hypothetically speaking, you could maybe have half the team size that you normally would because this is what's going on here. So your efficiency will go up, your cap will come down, and it's something you could bring to your board as a major win in this all new profit first mentality. I've yet to get an email like that, Jake. Have you got? Have you
No,
got it?
never. It never. And everyone bitches why outbound isn't working. And it's like, it is so like, again, like what we're teaching you all. And this goes back to look, you have to have the mindset and you have to understand that automate and scalable are different things. You can have a very rapidly scaling research generation, like relevancy customization process without automating it all. And Katie, this is probably the number one conversation I have with VPs of sales. Guys, on the Tesla line, and they laid off a lot of people. There's still a human who looks at the car. There is a human who looks at iPhones randomly. Like there is a human in the loop in almost every single consumer product that you buy. And the thought that like we can just automate our way into outbound working is I think an underlying layer of a lot of the things that we're talking about. If you can't understand that and willing to invest in it and believe that, you will never be successful at outbound. You will never, maybe I don't know, maybe in years in the foreseeable future. And I feel like that is an important part of this dialogue, right?
Oh yeah, it's we have people scaling suck. That's been my phrase the past like few months. It's just like scaling suck. Like yeah, you can do more of what's not working. And here's the problem. And I will call us out as revenue leaders. Is our definition of working is just very construed. Well, I sent a
Is it
thousand.
really? I mean, like, isn't the definition of working like it's generating results, right?
Okay,
Like,
right.
isn't
Well,
that the
but
definition?
no, no. This is actually important. I'm glad you phrased that way. Because if I sent
All right. Tell me what the definition of working is.
Well, this is what's happening. Okay. I sent 1,000 emails, Jake, and I booked one meeting. Did it work?
Hypothetically,
This is
hypothetically.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because that's how people, well, if I sent a
Yeah. Okay.
thousand,
That's fair. That's fair.
right? Right. If I sent 1,000 and got one, well, then 10,000 will get me 10. Look, it's working. When it's like, well, the definition of working is burning through 999 leads working. That's actually the problem is too many orgs and leaders have, I call it revenue blindness, where as long as the revenue's there, they're blind to everything else. And then that causes it to fall apart because it can't scale that way. And so I don't qualify 999 burnt leads to get one meeting as working. It got me.
It can't scale.
Right.
That to me is like it can't scale, right? Like you can't achieve $85 million in revenue or whatever with those metrics. Like there's no math equation I can do that will make that work when your TAM is 10,000 companies.
Yeah.
Right. It's not humanly possible. And so then the last few I dropped in there, one, the number 3, just so you all can check it out, is like what I love. And a lot of people really do not think about this. So you've got the industry, how do they make money? Where do they fit? You've got the persona. It's what's influencing their decisions or slowing them down. So this is that scenario planning. This is that if this, like, okay, well, what if it's good? What if it's bad? That maybe you used to have to go to your boss and talk through. So again, as a rep or as a leader trying to scale themselves, right? You can really start to think about that next layer, right? And then from there, you can say, okay, now take that and give me some ideas here. And this is the last piece I'll leave, number 4, which is, this idea of like, hey, help me to put together a proposal. The goal of a lot of this is like, it's not actually to like finish the proposal for you, but it's to say, look, based on the trends, like to Katie's point, with how they make money, the persona, and I'd add in maybe a 5th one that we didn't, which is what Katie mentioned, which is like their voiced concerns, right? Help me to put this together in a very logical way on how we might be able to help, right? And I think that those are the 4 ways to get inside that prospect's head. Their industry, their persona, and I'll add a 5th, the KD, which is like the things they voiced within the how they make money in persona. You've scenario planned, and then you've pulled it all together. And I think that is the value here. It's the aggregation and the thought. This used to take me, 15, 20 minutes to kind of aggregate, then think through, and now I can do it in 5. And it's like, we're already there. And that's kind of the point of a lot of this. This detail is like, you just have to realize we are already there, as a part of this.
The thing missing from these ones here that I would throw out for people is to get into causal language as well. So for example, when it says like, all right, pain points, regulatory compliance, keeping up with changing regulations, implementing compliance solutions, avoiding fines and penalties, to go a layer deeper and go, what do those pain points cause? Right. So what is the impact of keeping up with, right? Like that's the language that oftentimes, back to relevancy, that's actually what's relevant. Keeping up with changing regulations. Okay, cool, right? The relevancy is bi-weekly meetings with your compliance team just to review any changes to the legal code. Implementing compliance solutions, having low buy-in and execution by your team, causing them to be out of compliance, costing you money. It's going one layer deeper now that most reps would never get to. Most playbooks never get to any of those things, right? So just keep going deeper into causal language with personas, and now you're really in their head.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, again, for a lot of you, it's called iterative prompting, which is like, look, you're not going to maybe nail it out of the gate, but just keep going, right, with a lot of this. And so, Katie, you got an extra few minutes? You got to bounce?
Yeah. I can go a little bit.
All right, I can go a little bit too. So that's what we got. Like, those are the big ones. I also dropped in our prompt of the week. This one right here, it's a good little nugget. Talks about how to use people's LinkedIn profiles. Basically, the prompt. You can say, hey, and for those of you who don't know, it can't scrape LinkedIn. Somebody mentioned it in the chat. It's really easy, though. You just go up. If you all don't know how to do this, I mean, it's so funny. It's like people might not actually know how to print a page anymore because, like, who prints things, right? But you just go up to your Chrome browser, the dots, you hit print as PDF, and it gets you a beautiful printout of somebody's LinkedIn profile. So it's like a 25-second hack that gets around it. And what you can do is you can say, here's the person I'm prospecting. Conduct research, find news articles, other relevant things that would be interested, summarize it for me, and help me to understand, like, again, a mix of their company and, like what they might be interested in doing. Again, a lot of this is, I think for folks listening, this is what is possible now. And again, if you look at the output from this, it pulled out these articles. Like, the goal is, again, to kind of pull out articles that are relevant to where this person works. This person, I apologize in advance to Alan Kerr, who works at Vista. Alan, if you all of a sudden get a bunch of targeted emails, now you know why. But it talks about, hey, what is the company talking about? What is Alan talked about, et cetera, to where some different areas where I might, be able to help to book a meeting. And this is the type of prompt that you can use. And there's different variations here that you can kind of play with as a part of this. But the whole goal is, in the whole goal of this meeting and this conversation that you and I are having is, there's no reason to not be leveraging this for every single prospecting touch point, for every single discovery call prep. I just dropped in there our custom GPTs. Somebody had mentioned, I think it was Max. He's like, yeah, is this more custom GPTs, etc. And this to me is the most important piece. And Derek even asked, like, creating custom GPTs. No, you want to create ones for very specific use case. That's what we've done as well too, is you want to create very specific ones for specific use cases. It'll just get better that way. But this is where we're headed. And again, I'm just still shocked, KD, at how many sales leaders are not doing anything, and how many reps are coming out of their own pocket, right? And for the custom GPTs, but how many leaders are struggling here, And I think that Katie's talked about this, the research and prep, what we just showed you. Hey, Johnny needs to get better at personas. I need to learn an industry. Hey, we're trying to do some account planning. You got to start to pull up Chat GPT. You have to just ingrain this into your day to day, or you're just, again, like, it might not be today, might not be tomorrow, might not be next year, but in 2 or 3 years, the work that you put in today is going to have a direct impact on your income and your employability 3 to 5 years from now. And that's just facts.
Yeah, I'm going to throw one little extra on there to the leaders listening, but even to the reps. Someone posted actually about this a few weeks ago. They used a really, really smart person term. And I can't use it because I can't remember what it was. It was a super smart term. But the concept basically was around the idea of, like, passive learning. So the downside of some of this is when you had to manually research, it's stuck more.
Right.
Because you intent, like, someone, if you go find the term, it was a super smart person term, but it was like when you're reading that 10K and you're going through the industries and you're going through it, you retain it better because you're doing it with intention. Whereas this just spits it out for you. So as a leader, you have to make sure you are reviewing this stuff with your people and borderline quizzing on. Because just because they created it doesn't mean they know how to apply it. And so what this should do, and I don't hear enough people talking about this, is if I'm saving time in the research, it should allow me to increase time in the application. It only took me 10 minutes to get all that. So instead of the 2 hours it would have took me before, now I have 2 hours back to apply it. Write the better emails, role play the scenarios, game plan the leveraging of this information. Because, like, it is the thing I worry about the most on this is so passive now that, oh, here it is. I built a custom GPT and I used copy.ai to automatically enrich everything. And I have all of my information here, and there wasn't intention enough. So leaders, make sure you are going deeper on this stuff with your people. That's the human element that we bring, right? That's what we bring to the table now. And we have to make sure that we're leaning into it.
I love that, man. It's such a good one, which is, again, just saying, great, what does that mean? That can be a start. And guess what? If you're a rep, just ask ChatGPT what that means. What does it mean? Hey, like,
that mean? What does
I
that
don't know
mean?
what the hell. I don't know what that means. Like, what is? And again, like, a lot of the custom GPTs that we purposely program them, they say on the back, give me the value props in very specific jargon to that persona. And so, man, it'll start spitting out some acronyms. That is beautiful to engage, show you're smart, but you don't know what whatever XYZ certification is. Ask it. It'll tell you, right? So for a lot of you, like, that is where I love that retention. Think, okay, now great. Now you're like, hey, another kind of quick win here, and before we wrap up, I could have it do that whole thing it did for Stripe. And then I can also say, okay, I really want to know Stripe's business. Create a 10-question trivia game, right? And so I could take that prompt and at the end create a 10-question trivia game to make sure I understand top trends for them, and based on the priorities that they already have and these trends and this persona, and give me another answer after I answer one, and give me the answer if I got it wrong. So it's like there's so many leadership applications here that you as a leader can go and help with a lot of those as well too. And we do have a bunch of questions here. We're not going to be able to get to them, so tune in. Katie and I are back, regular schedule. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So we will answer all these. Steve, I see your question here too about companies allowing use of Chat GPT. It's mixed is my take there. But we'll save all these questions for next week. Don't worry. And yeah, we're excited to be back. Make sure to share this link with your sales team. Share this link with other folks. Also, and still a lot of you are still sticking around. KD, what's new with you, man? We just jumped in, but if you all haven't seen what KD is up to with his new sales leadership program, tell people, again, aspiring leaders, current leaders, tell people what you put together, and we'll share some links here as well too.
I mean, honestly, in theme of what we're talking about, it's all the leadership systems, right? Like all the systems that I use to run my orgs and the trainings I use to run my orgs, I've packaged up together, because we know most leaders don't get any of that, right? So it's like the one-on-one system, the hiring system, the onboarding system, the issue diagnosis system, the BIM, like it's all system, it's all templated, it's all frameworks that you can go and use. So labor of love, finally put it all together, put it out there, and it's been fun to just finally release that into the world and see the impact that it's starting to have already. So like I've got notes from people like, I landed this job because I was speaking like this and I could show them XYZ, and I'm like, my heart explodes, so launch that sales leadership accelerator, and funny enough, like we'll continue to add to that some of these GPTs and some of these systems to like run from an AI perspective. So that's it, sales leadership accelerator. Thanks for giving me the shout out there,
accelerator, man. Go check it out too. Katie, you got a link you can drop in real quick?
Yeah,
drop it in the chat real quick, so that way it lives on, and I'll copy and paste it into LinkedIn too. So then people can go, if they're on the LinkedIn live, they can go check it out as well. Sign up. What's the investment, KD? What's the investment?
Like $150 a month. Like, get in there. You hate it, get out of there. I don't care. Like, it's something like there to be there, to do and enjoy. I try to make it super affordable for managers to be able to do, for companies to be able to like put it in the education fund. So dropped it there. Get different credit systems. It has sales training in there too, all the templates. So, and then group calls as well to kind of AMA style answer questions.
Love it, dude. All right, let me drop it. Why won't it, man? Come on. I joined this early. Joined it early. She said, I joined this early. I don't know where y'all been. She's like, I joined early and it's doing well.
Oh, wait, I think I did the same thing. I think I dropped it into
the same thing, man.
Yeah, right? Yeah, damn. It's my first Zoom.
I'm dropping it.
Really,
I'm dropping it in LinkedIn now too. I keeps not doing. Okay, perfect. I dropped it there too. So, all right, everybody. Lessons from today. Get inside the prospect's head. If you are somebody out there, Jake, what do I do? I'm nervous. We just gave you a blueprint. Implement this one use case. Yeah. Using it to do discovery prep and book more meetings. And I also love the account management. A lot of account management teams aren't super senior and they don't know the business well enough. You can implement it. So no matter what role you're in, get inside your prospect's head. I would argue the 4 and then our additional 5th add-on is the easiest way to get started. So that's what we got for everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks. KD, I'll hit you up, man. Let's catch up next week. Enjoy Costa. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Thanks, y'all.